Blog Talk Radio.
You're listening live to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. Todd Corder here in the ATL with JJ, who was on the other side of Atlanta, Mark Mancini in Los Angeles, and our producer, Wayne in Memphis. We have a special guest with us today, Kirsten Krull, host of the Minnesota Wild and also co-host of OTR Sports Talk. Kirsten, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be on and talk to you guys.
Well, we're excited to be on with you, talking some hockey. And first of all, it's Women's History Month. What does that mean to you?
Oh, man, that's kind of a loaded question. But I was actually just talking to my co-host of the show that we do, Off the Record Sports, and we just filmed earlier this week, and this was actually a discussion that we had that we kind of went into a little bit of depth about. And, you know, I guess it didn't really hit me until over the summer because I started dabbling in play-by-play a little bit for some high school sports in the Twin Cities area. And that was something just very far out of my comfort zone, something I had never done before, something I never thought I could do. And so her and I were talking on our show and just kind of went in, and I had always done sideline reporting, and I said, I love it, don't get me wrong, but I truly thought that was the only thing out there for me in this industry and the only position that I could get involved in. So I never had thought about doing in-studio hosting for broadcast, being up in the booth. And so you know, when you're younger, there really was no one. There's maybe one or two women that I can vividly remember being in studio, but I can't tell you one that I saw growing up that was in the booth calling a game. And it's just really exciting for me to start seeing more of that representation across the board. I mean, you look at how much women's sports have grown, how much traction they've been gaining, and then you look at the representation from women in broadcasting who are now filling those roles in the booth, in studio. And so it was kind of a big realization for me when I started calling games. I was like, wow, like I never thought I could do this, but here I am. And, you know, 2 nights ago I got to call a hockey game again near the cities, and it's been a challenge, but it's been so much fun. And I think it couldn't be more fitting to have that game happened during Women's History Month.
Well, congratulations to you. You know, speaking of calling hockey games, I did play-by-play for 4 years in the NA3HL for the Atlanta Capitals. From what I understand, you worked in the NAHL, so you and I are very familiar with junior hockey, how important it is to the community. Talk a little bit about your days in the NAHL.
Junior hockey, it's a lot of fun, and you know, even at my time in the North Carolina Hockey League, it was so much fun. It was a challenge at first because there's all these names and coaches that you're meeting for the first time that you necessarily haven't been super familiar with, but it was a blast getting to know the people that work behind the scenes, that work for the teams, and it's even more exciting, too, for the players, in my case, that I was interviewing because I was the correspondent for them at big events that they had, especially in Blaine, Minnesota, and just getting to interview these coaches, especially the players. And they have a handful of players that go on to play Division I hockey, make it to the NHL. So getting to see those guys and see how they advance in their hockey careers is so much fun, and I think that's the most rewarding part of the whole thing.
You're listening to Kirsten Krull right here on ATL Prime Sports. Kirsten is the host of the Minnesota Wild for the NHL. I'm going to ask you about that logo, Kirsten. That is one of the most unique logos in sports. I've actually Googled it. It's like, according to several sites, it's like top 10 logos in the sports world. Do you have any cool stories about the Minnesota Wild's logo? Because it's so detailed. It's got so much into it, and I just think it's such a cool logo. And what are your thoughts about the logo itself?
I don't really have any cool stories surrounding the logo, and this might, you know, have people making fun of me or judging me a little bit, but I'm going to be completely honest. I've been born and raised in Minnesota, been familiar with the Wild my entire life, grew up watching them, and it took me until, honestly, I think about a year ago to actually figure out what the logo was. I used to think it was just, and maybe it is, I think that was part of the thing to go along with it, but when you first look at it, it just kind of looks like a sunset and a bunch of trees. And then I figured out about a year ago that it's, I think, a bear. So then I realized that, and I'm like, wow, I feel really stupid now.
Yeah, there's so much into it. I was looking at it and reading an article about it because if we're off air, I'll tell you, I like hockey. I'm technically a Blues fan. That was my grandfather's team. You guys are currently third in the West right now, trailing the Blues and the Vegas Knights. So I just look at that logo all the time, and I'm like, man, you got the river for the mouth. You got the trees. The sun is the eye. It is like a bot. You said it's a bear. I thought it was a bobcat, so I may have even learned something more new about the logo than I already knew. Well, Kirsten, it's a pleasure to have you again. I'm JJ. We got some more questions for you, and I'll go to the next one. But that's really interesting about that Minnesota Wild logo. Thank you.
No problem.
Hey, Kirsten, Mark Mancini here, born in Pittsburgh, living in Los Angeles. And I know, with the way the divisions are set up right now, Minnesota in the division with the Kings. Are you guys traveling now? So do you get out to California with the team, or is everything done in the studio back there?
So I don't travel with the team at all. There's a certain amount of people that are in the bubble with the team. I am not. So I just stay up at the XL Energy Center. I'm actually going to be heading up there in a little bit for tonight's game. We start a three-game series starting at home against the Arizona Coyotes tonight. And so I am up there for home games, and I am just on our stage that we have. I'm in arena hosting for the team. So it's been interesting. It's been fun, too. I'm thankful because it had been a full year since I'd last done anything live. And so getting that practice in front of the limited number of fans we do have in attendance now has been really nice. And so if I am messing up, there's not too many people that are seeing it quite yet. So that's been a plus.
Right. Real fast with a follow-up, and I'll give it over to Todd and the guys. You got three ex-Penguins on that squad with Bonino, Bustad, and Cole. You're not making a trade because I really don't want to part with Crosby or Malkin yet going to Minnesota. Any thought to those three ex-Penguins with the experience helping the Minnesota Wild out?
They've been huge this season. I mean, especially with Bonino, he has that experience of being on a championship team. And then you look at Nick Bustad, too. I mean, he's suffered from injuries in the past, but this season he's been doing awesome for the Wild, and I know he's been a huge contributor, and we're happy to have him. And as far as Cole goes, too, his recent acquisition from, I believe he was with the Avs most recently, he has also been a huge addition to the team. So I think we're just really lucky to have all three of those guys on our squad, and they're making some big contributions.
Hey, Kirsten, Todd Corder here in Atlanta. Two stories, one coming out from the Wild this week. They're going to allow fans in the stands, 3,000, starting on April 5th. And then my second question is, they're at home versus the Coyotes, 15-8-1, like JJ said, third in the West with 31 points. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10, a two-game winning streak. What is the reason for the recent surge? Because this team is on the rise, not only from great play in the net, but also really good defense, and that's what can take a team to the cup.
There's a lot of different factors that play into the Wild's recent success. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and get this one out of the way. It's no secret. Kirill Kaprizov has been a huge, huge name for our team. He's going to be a superstar player for us. He's made not only a few goals that have been big time, but a lot of just anytime he's on the ice, he makes great plays. He's had some great assists that have led to big goals. Even watching him skate, he just has been phenomenal and so fun to watch. Then, like you had mentioned, you talk about goaltending. We have Kaapo Kähkönen, who he currently has the longest record among goaltenders in Wild franchise history with the most wins, with 8 after the most recent game against the Golden Knights on Wednesday. And he's also ranked top amongst all goalies in the NHL right now. And so he's been phenomenal then, even backing him up with Cam Talbot. It's awesome to have both of those guys on the squad, both that you can count on regardless of who's starting between the pipes. And then I think, too, you just see all of the guys clicking on all cylinders. I mean, Marcus Foligno, too. Look at his play in the last couple of weeks. And then Joel Eriksson Ek, he's currently the leading goal scorer on the team, making a lot of big-time plays. And so there's a lot of players that have really just been contributing. And right now, I don't even know if we're seeing the Wild's best hockey yet. I think they're just kind of getting warmed up, and big things to see from them.
You're listening to Kirsten Krull, host of the Minnesota Wild and co-host of OTR Sports here on ATL Prime Sports. Kirsten, 1 year ago today, the NHL had its COVID-19 shutdown. 1 year later, we are where we are now. A tremendous difference. The NHL did a great job with its bubble last season. They've done a really good job in terms of handling COVID cases. Talk about how difficult it's been from a league perspective, from the players, management, the media, and et cetera.
First and foremost, I think when you talk about the difficulties that this last year's brought, I think you just especially have to talk about the mental aspect of it all. And that's what, not so much from guys on the Wild, but just other reporters who cover other teams, from what I've seen in conversations they've had. The guys, maybe are feeling the mental challenge of this season and everything it's entailed. And, even some workers feeling a little bit isolated. And this even stretches so far beyond just hockey. I think everyone has been feeling this way just because everyone is trying to keep their distance and stay as safe as possible. So there's those challenges. And then, it's a whole feat in and of itself to even try to have a season with everything considered. And I just think, like you had mentioned, the NHL, all of the staff, the players, everyone involved has just done such a really great job of staying safe and allowing us to have a season with all things considered.
Hey, Kirsten, I wanted to follow up with changes there in the National Hockey League from when COVID-19, the division changes, mostly no fans. Some places in the South are having fans. We have, what is called, a Canadian division now. There's no entry into Canada. The Canadian teams cannot enter into the United States. Canada teams are only playing their own division. Matter of fact, each team in the league cut down on travel and risk of getting the virus, and they're only playing teams in their division. Tell me what that has been like, too, because, it's really hard to gauge at this point. I mean, you can tell who the serious contenders are, but, some divisions are simply better than others.
Yeah, and talking about that Canadian division for a minute, too, I, in all honesty, haven't seen too much games live from them, but I've been following along, and I think all hockey fans, especially up in Canada, are loving it. People saying it's like hockey night in Canada every single night. So really liking that all-Canadian division. And then you look at the Wild perspective, they're kind of playing against a number of teams that they don't normally have those regular rivalries with, and being thrown into the West Division. And also, unfortunately for Minnesota fans, that entails a lot of really late-night games. Right now we're lucky because we're in the midst of a 5-game homestand. So puck drop has been a little bit earlier, more reasonable for us in the Central Time Zone. But the West Division has been just so much fun to watch. I mean, you look at the top 5 teams in that division, they're all within just a couple of points of each other, the Wild being 2 points out from taking that top spot from the Golden Knights, 1 point behind St. Louis in second. And so it's really just on any given night, it could be a new top dog out there. And then another division I've really been following is the Central Division. Again, same story. You look at them, top 3 teams right now with Carolina being in the top spot, Tampa Bay second, and then the Florida Panthers, who expected them to have the season that they've been having? Another Division II where on any given night someone could take over that top spot. So I think it's getting really fun seeing how these divisions have changed up and seeing things heat up as we get past the halfway point of the season.
You're listening to Kirsten Krull here on ATL Prime Sports, host of the Minnesota Wild. Kirsten, now that the Canadian teams they're not going to be playing the American teams until the Final Four. So hopefully by then, are they going to create a bubble? What's the plan? Hopefully the border will be open by then. I think it will be, but it's not only up to the United States, it's up to Canada. What are your thoughts on that real quick?
Honestly, it's hard to say what's going to happen in the next couple of months. I'm hoping that we get into the position where the borders can be open and seeing how that goes. As far as the bubble, I have no idea what the plans are going to be once we cross that bridge, but I'm honestly amazed just as a society and where we are in the world with this whole pandemic that's been going on, that we're at this point we are right now. I didn't expect us to really be getting fans in arena, getting so many people vaccinated so quickly, and so I think we're in a good position now that's only going to hopefully get better. And so as far as playing those Canadian teams go, I'm hoping come the postseason we're going to be able to safely and, just get to play them as well and getting to cross that border.
Hey, Kirsten, this is Wayne in Memphis. I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, have been for a long time. What do you think their chances are with as strong a team as they have this year that they could possibly make it to and win the Stanley Cup this year?
That's a good question, and it's hard to say, again, because, it's one thing in the regular season, but as everyone knows, once that postseason rolls around, especially with the Stanley Cup playoffs, it's a whole different beast, and on any given night, somebody could just take over and have an unexpected outcome that we weren't anticipating. And so I think they've got a good shot. They've got, when you have a superstar like Austin Matthews, for example, on your team, you can't rule them out. But again, too, once they hopefully start playing these American teams as well, it's going to be interesting because we haven't seen them go up against them. So there might be some surprises.
Also, you are the co-host of OTR Sports. Our producer, Wayne, he knows that Toronto Blue Jays drought since '67, so he's really hoping they break out of that puppy sometime soon. You're the host of OTR Sports and also the host of the Minnesota Wild, and we thank you for coming on today. You're listening to her on ATL Prime Sports. Kirsten, we'll switch a little bit here. We've talking, about hockey. What are some of the subjects you do on OTR Sports?
We try to honestly cover everything because me and my co-host Alexis, although we both primarily work in hockey, we love football, we love baseball, we try to watch it all. And on this week's most recent episode, we talk about Dak Prescott's big contract. We talk about Women's History Month in sports. We talk about how March Madness is starting almost. We're getting there. Selection Sunday coming up this weekend. And so just a bunch of different topics. And then we try to keep it light and fun as well. We do a couple of different segments to try to get people involved too, not only share our takes on what's going on in sports, but try to get our viewers feedback as well, what they think. And so that's another big thing too. We want people to share their opinions with us, maybe start some good sports debate, and that's what it's all about. Just getting to connect with people through sports, a common interest. And I think throughout this pandemic too, especially this time last year when we didn't have sports, it became more apparent to just want to get something like this going, because you never know if something could be taken away from you like work. And so being able to have this new platform that's our own has been a lot of fun.
Kirsten, you're from Minnesota, and I know being from Pittsburgh, it's a great day for me when the Washington Capitals get their butts kicked. And being from Minnesota, is there a special team, maybe not so much in hockey with the rivalry with Minnesota, unless it's St. Louis or Chicago around there, but is there something that sticks out? It's a great day with you when some team gets dethroned, whether it's hockey or it must be in football, it's got to be the Bears or the Packers. And if you could also follow up on, boy, I'll tell you, I grew up with the Minnesota North Stars there, and I'll tell you, hockey is just a religion in Minnesota. How great is it now to see the Wild coming out with them jerseys that the North Stars used to wear?
Well, to answer your first question, it's a good day in Minnesota anytime the Twins beat the Yankees. It's been a while since that's happened, but baseball season starting up here really soon. Again, we're going to have 10,000 fans to start the season at Target Field, so I'm really excited about that. I'm trying to get my hands on some tickets so I can go to a game sooner than later. And hopefully this is the year to end that 18-year postseason drought. Not a good stat to have with your team, but I grew up a huge Twins fan, and I'm hoping to see them win a game in the playoffs. And so my fingers are crossed for that. And then to follow up with the North Stars, tonight is also the Wild's reverse retro night against the Coyotes. So they'll be wearing their jerseys and threads that pay tribute to the North Stars. And you can really tell this season especially how much Minnesotans love their hockey and know everything about the history of hockey here in Minnesota. Lots of North Star fans and carried over to the Wild when hockey was brought back to the state. We're celebrating our 20th year anniversary of the Wild franchise, and so it's an extra special season here in Minnesota for that. But, yeah, Minnesotans, they love their hockey, and it's been really fun this year to see the reverse retro threads and kind of connect with the 20th year anniversary as well, just the history of the sport in the state.
You're listening to Kirsten Krull here on ATL Prime Sports, host of the Minnesota Wild and co-host of OTR Sports Talk. Kirsten, I noticed you grew up on Culver's Butter Burgers. You were raised on them. They're down here in the metro Atlanta area. I used to have them a lot myself until I had a health issue with the kidney, and now I'm pretty much eat low to no salt. So tell me about that, growing up on Culver's Butter Burgers.
In all honesty, I'm trying to cut back a little bit. I think over the past year, you slowly start to see it catch up to you, but I still eat a fair amount, especially on Wild game days. That's become a fun little thing. The last 2 times I've gone, I had number ticket 97, which is Krill's pre-office number. And so I just made jokes on my social media that, hey, he's going to do something big tonight, and I'm currently 2 for 2 when I go to Culver's and get ticket number 97 because most recent time he had a goal, time before he had an assist. So, I'm not saying that I'm a sidekick or anything, but I do think me going to Culver's on game day has brought some good luck to the team. But it is, it's my favorite fast food place. I got the best burgers, best food. You can't go wrong with the Culver's, and if you don't have one near you, I'm so sorry.
Well, I do here in Atlanta. I'm just hoping maybe that'll give the Red Wings some kind of boost. I mean, they went from a 26-year-old consecutive playoff streak. Now they've gone down the reverse and they're towards the bottom of the standings. And I need to come up with something. Maybe another chain or something to be able to try to reverse their drought. But I tell you, but if the butter burgers work out for you, keep eating them. I mean, you're young. You don't have to worry about that. I'm old. I got to watch what I eat for multiple reasons. But, going back to this NHL season, if we can, tell me, who do you think your Final Four is and why?
Oh, gosh, that's a good question. First and foremost, I'm going to be a homer, but not just because I'm from here and that I work for the Wild, but you look at the way the Wild have played this season, and it's been incredible. I do think they're going to make a run, and I think they're going to avoid that first-round exit in the postseason. I think this is a year for them to do big things, and, you know, with the expansion draft coming as well, I think there's a lot of players who feel the urgency to step up as well and prove they deserve a spot. And so I think this is a good year for them to make a run. They've got a lot of key pieces. And then, too, again, looking at that Central Division, if I'm going to pick a team to come out of there, in all honesty, I've really been liking the Florida Panthers. They've really surprised me, and I think they've just been so under the radar. Maybe not as of most recently because they've been playing so well that everyone's just kind of been raving about them, but that Florida Panthers team has really stood out to me, and again, they're within just 2 or 3 points of the top spot and taking over in the Central, and so that's another team that's really surprised me. I'm not too familiar with all of the standings in the North Division, and then the South as well. I'm not super sure, but as far as the West and Central go, those are 2 teams I imagine coming out of there.
No, I said when you look at the division, and I'm going to be a little biased in it, I look at the division where the Penguins are in, and you're stacked, and they're only taking 4 teams. It almost reminds me of college in the SCSU where these teams are just beating up on each other, and there's really not a team that's, you know, that you can really take advantage on any given night. Maybe, you know, with Buffalo slipping a little, but when you're stacked in a division like that, Kirsten, does that give you an advantage, you think, in your mind when the playoffs start to roll around? If you finish in the top 4 in your division, that you're ready to roll and be prepared to play in the playoffs and maybe bring a Stanley Cup because you've been playing that competition every night where it's like a death march. Any thought to that?
Yeah, I think, if anything, it just makes it feel like it's a playoff atmosphere every single night. And especially, too, again, a lot of these teams playing against teams that they don't normally face and form rivalries with during the regular season, so kind of becoming new rivals, especially this year. Again, yeah, I do think that it does help your chances, too, because you're playing in a shortened season to begin with, and playing against good competition, and you want to get a spot in the postseason. And so, yeah, like as far as looking at all the standings right now, a lot of these teams within just a couple points of each other, and I think it's only going to continue to heat up. And if you've been playing playoff-style hockey a good chunk of the season, you're going to be ready to go once that time actually comes. So I think it's only been a greater benefit to everyone in the league.
You're listening to Kirsten Krull, host of the Minnesota Wild and co-host of OTR Sports Talk here on ATL Prime Sports. Less than a minute to go in the show. Kirsten, tell me real quick, who wins it all and why? About 30 seconds.
Oh, man. Oh, I'm going to need to think about this for a sec. You know, I know I've been saying I really like Florida, but another team out of that division that I really liked, and especially watching in the bubble, was the Carolina Hurricanes. I really liked them. And with the young guys they've got on that squad, I think they're just going to continue to get better and better. So if I have to have a pick to win the Cup this year, and as much as I want to say my Minnesota Wild, I do think a Cup will be coming to Minnesota real soon, but I would like to make a strong case for the Hurricanes.
All right, well, you heard it. That's my section of the country, and I do get the Hurricanes locally here in Atlanta along with the Nashville Predators. That's it. Kirsten, thank you so much for coming on to the show. For myself in Atlanta, for JJ on the other side, for Mark Mancini in Los Angeles, for Wayne, our producer in Memphis, thank you so much for coming on, and have a great weekend, everybody.